Hi, I'm Miss Connie, and you're watching Storytime with Miss Connie. Thank you, boys and girls, for tuning in today. I hope you are going to enjoy the book that I'm going to read. The last time we tried to read a book, I had two little friends with me, and they're here today, but we're going to leave them in here. Maybe I'll bring them out at the end, but we're going to try to finish the book we started last time. When we left off last time, little Jessie, the dog, was barking at all the ducklings and scaring Chloe, the little girl, away because she wanted to visit with the ducklings. So she was not happy with her brother. So we're going to pick it up where the ducklings swim away. Okay, let's see. All righty. So at last time when we last met, the doggy, Jessie, had run off, and Grandpa, who had come, said, go put her on the leash because she's not old enough to go off leash yet. So now this is where we pick up. Well, Will chased after Jessie, who darted away, glad that this was a game again. Grandpa put his arm around Chloe. What's the matter? Jessie didn't hurt you, did she? Chloe shook her head. She just knocked me over and got me all muddy. But I was watching those ducks, and she chased them all away. Why does she have to be so rough? She's only little, Chloe. Puppies are silly like that. And Jessie doesn't know her own strength. And that's true. Puppies are very active and rough. Chloe sniffed and looked over at Jessie and Will, who were running back toward them now. Why don't you take her for a walk around the lake with Will once she gets back on the leash? Grandpa suggested gently. I'll come too if you want. Chloe hesitated. She'd like to go if Jessie was on the leash. But then the puppy spotted two Canada geese flying overhead and barked at full volume, jumping up and trying to catch the birds, who ignored her completely. She shrank back against Grandpa. No, it's okay. I'll go back and sit with Mom and Dad and read my book. Grandpa sighed as he watched her run back to her parents, who were sitting on a picnic blanket. He followed after her slowly. Jessie scampered off, and Will laughed as she pulled hard on her leash. She loved walks like this with lots of different things to sniff and chase. She saw another duck in the distance and woofed happily, turning back to glance bright-eyed at Will. They raced away excitedly together. Sounds like Will and Jessie, Will the brother and Jessie the dog, get along very well, don't they? Chloe sat down on the blanket and stared at her book, but she wasn't really reading it. It was a book about a girl and her dog, which was quite funny, really, she realized. Girls who read dog books were supposed to like dogs, not be scared of them. And I think Chloe might have been scared. Chloe propped her chin on her hands and reread the first line of the page. But she just couldn't concentrate. Why hadn't she gone with Grandpa and Will to walk Jessie? She had been so excited when Mom and Dad had finally given in and said yes, they could get a puppy at last. Will and Chloe had been begging them forever. It was going to be a family dog who belonged to everyone, even though it was Will who was the most excited. He was 10 now, and Mom and Dad had said that if he was really careful, he and Chloe would be able to take the puppy out on their own once they'd been to some dog training classes. And that is very important, boys and girls. First of all, puppies are very excitable and excited and active, and they definitely need training. Unfortunately, although the Grays had had Jessie for 6 weeks now, and she was old enough to go out for walks, the dog training classes had been at the same time as Will's football practice, so Jessie hadn't been to any yet. Will didn't mind too much. He and Dad took her for really long walks when Dad got home from work. Or sometimes he went with Grandpa. But Chloe didn't go at all. She had been sure that everything would be okay. She couldn't possibly be scared of a tiny little puppy. Could she? When they'd had a family discussion to decide what kind of a dog they should get, she had said she didn't mind as long as it was friendly and sweet and not too big and not a boxer. It had been a boxer who'd frightened her 3 years ago, back in her first year at school. She'd been running after Mom and Will through the park on the way home, and she'd gotten a little too close to the big dog. It had thought she was going to snatch the stick it was playing with and snapped at her. The boxer hadn't really hurt Chloe, just tore her sweater sleeve, but she had been terrified, and Mom had been furious with the dog's owner. You know, that's why dogs, when they have sticks or food or anything, you really need to stay away. And it wasn't Chloe's fault that she got close. It just happened to be the dog was there. She told the boy that his dog should be on the leash. Sound familiar? If it wasn't properly under control. She said she'd report him to the police if she ever saw it loose in the park again. Then Mom had explained to Will and Chloe that they mustn't ever, ever go near strange dogs. And that's true. You got to be real careful, even if they looked friendly. Chloe had known that already, of course. She'd just run a little too close. For a while after that, she would beg Mom to take them the long way home from school so they didn't have to go through the park, where there were always people walking dogs. But that had been 3 years ago. She could walk through the park now, although she wouldn't pet even the friendliest dog. Chloe had been certain that a puppy would be all right. She loved the idea of having a dog, and a puppy that she knew from when it was tiny, surely she wouldn't be scared. But it hadn't worked out like that at all. The first time Chloe had seen Jessie, the border collie puppy was beautiful, so fluffy, like a little black and white ball. They had gone to see the litter of puppies at the breeder's, and Chloe and Will had laughed at the funny little puppies climbing over each other and bouncing around their cage. Chloe had been so excited, and when she finally found the courage to pet the little black and white head, Jessie had licked her hand with a tiny pink tongue. Chloe had loved her right away. She could see Will and Jessie now, playing by the tall trees at the edge of the lake. Jessie jumping excitedly at the stick that Will was waving. It was the kind of energetic game Jessie loved. And border collies actually do like energetic, because they really are herding dogs. Border collies are herding. They like to herd. They herd animals, they herd people, anything they can herd, they'll herd. That was Chloe's problem. Jessie wasn't just fluffy and sweet. She was jumpy, too, and wriggly and loud. Will played with her all the time, and that made her even more excited, and that is true. She would jump around his feet, barking away, and Chloe couldn't help looking at her sharp little white teeth. She'd been looking forward to the puppy curling up on her lap for a cuddle sometimes, but Jessie just didn't seem to be that kind of dog. Chloe tried to hide it, but even though she wanted to, she was too scared to touch her. And Jessie had Will, who loved her so much. Why would she bother with a girl who never petted her? And pulled away even if Jessie gave her an interested sniff. Wow. Poor Chloe, isn't that sad? When she thought she got a puppy that was friendly. Puppies are very active, and people don't realize that. And people, when they get puppies, they think that they're all sweet and calm, and they just are not. There are not very many puppies that are calm. I mean, look at the kitties in here. They're like, well, they're sleeping right now because they're nappy, but they're not like that all the time. Okay, shall we continue? Let's see how much time we have. Do we have enough time for another chapter? I don't know. We can try. Okay. Chloe was half reading, half listening to Grandpa and her parents chatting when a loud bark made her jump. She watched as the puppy suddenly appeared from among the trees, streaking toward them in a black and white blur. "She's running around off her leash again," she said nervously. Man. Mom looked at Jessie. "She's just having fun, Chloe. Don't worry." Jessie stopped a little ways away from the picnic blanket and barked again anxiously. She needed them to come now, but they were just staring at her. She pawed at Chloe's leg, but Chloe pulled away with a frightened squeak. Jessie shook her ears. Why did Chloe always do that? Frantically, she ran back toward the trees a little ways and barked again. I think something's wrong, Dad said, frowning and getting up. Where's Will? Will? Yes. They'd understood at last. Jessie whined again and then wagged her tail as Dad and Chloe finally followed her. Will had told her to go and get them. And even though she hadn't wanted to leave him, she was desperate to help. Oh no, Dad muttered as she got closer to the trees. Huddled at the bottom of one of the taller trees was Will. Dad and Chloe broke into a run. It's all right, we're here now, Dad said as he crouched by Will. I fell. I got really high up and my branch broke, Will said faintly. Don't worry, everything will be okay, Dad said soothingly. He turned to Chloe. Go get your mom and tell her to call an ambulance. I think Will might have broken his leg. Jessie sat in the kitchen in her basket, whimpering ever so often. She didn't know what was happening, but things were definitely not right. And she didn't know where Will was. Shh, shh, Jessie, Grandpa said gently, stroking her head. Don't worry, poor Jessie. It must have been very, very scary for her seeing Will like that. It was scary for everyone, Chloe whispered, cupping her hands around her hot chocolate. Grandpa had made it for her. He said even though it was summer, there was nothing like hot chocolate when people were upset. But it didn't seem to be working. I wish Mom would call, Chloe stared hopefully at the phone as though that would make it burst into life. She promised she'd call as soon as she had some news. Grandpa patted Chloe's hand a bit like she petted Jessie. I know it was scary, but Will's going to be well taken care of. A broken leg heals quickly, and Will is healthy and strong. He was awake and talking to us, and that's the important thing. Chloe nodded. She supposed her grandpa was right, but Will's leg had been all twisted and awful looking. At last the phone rang, and Chloe spilled her drink all over the table. Grandpa reached for the phone before Chloe could grab it. Hello, honey, what's happening? Chloe hovered next to Grandpa, trying to hear, but it was mostly just meow meow and right from this end. She couldn't hear what Mom was saying. Finally, Grandpa put down the phone. Didn't you want to talk to me? Chloe asked, sounding hurt. She didn't have long, Chloe. Will's going to have an operation on his leg. She needed to be with him. Chloe stared at him. An operation? But I thought he'd just have a cast put on it. Isn't that what you do for a broken leg? That's what Maddie had when she broke her arm. Grandpa nodded. It's a pretty bad break. He fell a long way. He's going to have some special pins put in his leg to hold the bone while it heals. Gosh, that was serious. Is Will going to have to stay in the hospital for long? Chloe asked, tracing patterns in hot chocolate on the plastic tablecloth. She'd wiped it up, but not very well. Jessie came and stood with her paws on Grandpa's knee. She could hear them talking about Will. Where was he? When was he coming home? For a while, Grandpa replied, Mom wasn't sure. I'm going to stay here for a couple of nights to take care of you. Chloe felt her throat tighten. She had thought Will would be home tonight. Staying in a hospital sounded scary. Jessie looked at Chloe. Was she worried about Will? What was going on? She whimpered, staring up at Chloe and Grandpa hopefully. But Chloe just turned away and walked quickly out of the room, her eyes filling with tears. Let's leave her alone to calm down, Grandpa said to Jessie. Jessie stared up at him with big, sad eyes. Everyone was upset, and the house felt strange without Will. She wanted him to come home and play fetch with her in the yard. Grandpa sighed and tickled her behind her ears. I know, Jessie. I want him home too, but it's going to be just us for a while. The last week of school before summer vacation was usually so much fun, but this year everything seemed different. Will and Chloe usually walked to school together. because it was only around the corner, and Will was in middle school and old enough to be responsible. Mom said, but all the week, Chloe had to walk to school with Grandpa because she couldn't go by herself. Jessie came too because Grandpa said she really needed some exercise. Chloe missed Will and Mom and Dad too. They were spending a lot of time at the hospital with Will, and Grandpa was going to stay at Chloe's house for the rest of the week to help. She loved Grandpa, but she couldn't help feeling a little left out. At least she had horse camp to look forward to. She and her friend Maddie were spending the second week of the vacation staying at a ranch where they'd each get to take care of their own special pony all week. They were going horseback riding, and they'd be learning to jump too. Chloe couldn't wait. Maddie met them halfway to school as usual. She knew all about Chloe's issues with Jessie, but she loved dogs too. She's so pretty, Maddie told Chloe, as Jessie trotted alongside them. I know what you mean about her being energetic, but she's so cute. Chloe sighed, even though Maddie was her best friend and she was trying really hard to understand how Chloe felt about Jessie. She just couldn't. Maddie loved dogs almost as much as Will. On Tuesday after school, Mom picked Chloe up in the car to take her to visit Will. She'd seen him for 5 minutes the day before, but he'd still been sleepy after the operation. And she wasn't sure he'd really knew she was there. Chloe was desperate to see him, but a little nervous at the same time. She knew he was going to ask about Jessie, and she didn't know what to say. Chloe was starting to worry about the puppy. She spent most of her time moping in her basket or perched on the window seat in the living room, where she usually sat to watch for Will, walking home from school. Obviously, she was waiting for him to come, and whenever she heard Mom or Dad pulling up in the car, she would rush to the door barking excitedly, her tail wagging. Then, as soon as she realized Will wasn't with them, she would slink sadly back into her basket. Will had a big cast on his leg, but otherwise he was his old self, except that he hated having to keep still. Chloe perched on the edge of Will's bed while Mom went over to speak to one of the nurses. I can't believe I'm going to be stuck in bed forever, he groaned. Does it hurt? Chloe asked, biting her lip. No, it's all right. I've got medicine to stop it from hurting. It's itchy, though. Will frowned. Chloe, how's Jessie? Is she missing me? Mom says she's fine, but I think she's just saying anything to make me feel better. Chloe glanced over at Mom, who was still talking to the nurse. She knew what he meant, but she didn't want to upset Will either. Worrying about Jessie would only make him feel worse. She's okay, Chloe said carefully. She does miss you, but Grandpa's taking her for walks, and she comes with us to school and back. But Grandpa can't run, Chloe. He's too old. Jessie needs a lot of exercise, and I was supposed to take her to dog training during summer vacation. He looked worried. Couldn't you go for walks with Grandpa? Will pleaded. I know you're nervous with Jessie, but if Grandpa was there too. Chloe looked at her fingers. We all walked to school together, she repeated, but she knew that wasn't really what Will meant. Come on, Chloe. Will needs to rest now. You can come back and see him soon. Mom had finished talking and was looking at Will's pale face with concern. Chloe hardly spoke on the way home until they were just turning onto their street. How long is Will going to be there? She asked suddenly. I'm really not sure, Chloe, Mom answered. He should have been able to come home soon after the operation, but the nurse said they're a little worried that the bone pieces haven't fit back together correctly yet. It could be a while, a few weeks even. Weeks? Chloe whispered in horror. She hadn't thought it could possibly be that long. She would miss his silly jokes, and Jessie would be heartbroken. The puppy was waiting hopefully by the door when they got home, and her droopy ears made Chloe feel so guilty. She'd said to Will that Jessie was okay, but now she looked so miserable. Chloe sighed. If she'd told Will that, it would have made him miserable too. There was nothing he could do about it, stuck in the hospital. But I could help, Chloe told herself. I could try and cheer Jessie up. She followed Jessie into the kitchen and watched as she slumped down into her basket. Chloe felt so sorry for her, sitting there with her head hanging. "Hey, Jessie," she said gently, crouching by the basket. Jessie ignored her. She wanted Will, and he still hadn't come back to her. She didn't like it when he went to school every day, but at least he always came home. Where was he now, and why hadn't he taken her with him? Chloe nervously darted out a hand to pat Jessie, but she patted her too hard, and when Jessie wasn't expecting it. Oh, wow. That's another no-no. Oh, my goodness. Jessie was feeling so upset that when Chloe touched her, she jumped around and barked sharply, showing her teeth. What was going on? She stared angrily at Chloe, who was scrambling away, crying. Silly girl. Why couldn't Chloe just leave her alone? Wow. Man, that's sad, isn't it? But you know, keep in touch, because I don't read books that don't have happy endings. That's it. Chloe kept away from Jessie after that. I guess so. Her behavior had brought back all those bad memories of the dog in the park. Chloe visited Will. Let me go back and ask you, what did she do wrong? Or should I say, what should she have done right? So she saw Jessie in the basket, and Jessie was sleeping with her back turned. What could Chloe have done? Chloe, first of all, maybe should have gone around to the front and maybe made some soft noises to gently wake Jessie up. Maybe said, "Hi, Jessie, how are you doing?" without touching her. And then when she woke up and she opened her eyes, then she should have pet her. So never sneak up on a doggy, because that is dangerous, because you scare them. What would you do if somebody came and rattled you real quick? Think about that. So remember, okay? That's fun. Okay, so now Chloe is scared, and she's staying away from Jessie. Chloe visited Will and spoke to him on the phone a couple of times, but whenever he asked about Jessie, she just said that Grandpa was taking her for long walks and wriggled out of saying more than that. Grandpa really loved dogs, and Jessie liked him, but it wasn't the same as racing all over the park with Will. The puppy was bursting with energy, and a couple of short walks a day just weren't enough. And border collies are like that, and that's what you have to be careful when you adopt an animal, a dog. Know his personality. If they need a lot of they have an extra energy and they need a lot of the activity, you need to know that. So you need to check on that before you adopt a dog. The puppy was bursting with energy, and Jessie was used to a quick walk before school and then another really long one with Will and Dad later on. But Dad was working late so he could fit in visiting Will in the hospital. He didn't have much time for dog walking. Collies need a lot of exercise, and Jessie really hated being stuck in the house. She was bored. It was the first morning of vacation, so Jessie hadn't even had her walk to school. She wandered around the house with her leash, looking hopeful, but Mom was busy picking out some books to take to Will, and Jessie knew Chloe wouldn't take her. Mom had encouraged Jessie to go out into the yard, but that was no fun without somebody to play with. She looked around the kitchen, trying to find something interesting to do. She pushed her squeaky bone across the floor for a while, but what she really needed was for Will to throw it for her to chase. Well, I'm going to bookmark this page, because I think we'll pick up next time at that page. But I think we need to bring out a kitty to say goodbye. What do you think? It's the end of the show. Once again, George, you want to come out? He's sleeping. He's sleeping. We're going to pull him out, though. You know why? Because I want him to say goodbye. 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 So long. I want to say goodbye. Goodbye. Hey, did we show pictures of Chloe? Did we show pictures of Chloe? Oh, he's purring. He's purring. This is my little baby. Again, George is about 4 months old. You want to say goodbye? He's so sweet. You want to adopt George or come see any of the kitties? Come see us at PetSmart. Fourth Sunday of the month from 12 till noon at the Bowie PetSmart. We're getting ready to go to Petco and Pet Value and Crunchies too, so keep up to date. You can visit our website or just email us at causforpaws70@yahoo.com and ask to be put on our email list, and then you'll know when our activities are. Oh, actually, we're doing our kennel comforter project this month, where we're making kennel comforters for all the dogs and cats down at the county shelter. Do you love this? See, I woke him up and he's sleeping. Believe me, boys and girls, kittens are not like this all the time. I woke him up. When he fully wakes up, he will be running everywhere, across everybody's face, up the curtains, up the doors, everywhere. But anyway, I want to leave you with a very, very important thing to remember is please, I love this cat, he's so sweet, please spay or neuter your pets to prevent more homeless animals, because why, kids? They are a cause for paws. Say goodbye, George. He says, no, I want to cuddle. Say goodbye. Bye-bye, boys and girls, moms and dads. See you next time. Bye-bye, sweetie. You're a good boy. Yes, you are. You're a good boy.